Welcome back, folks, to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. On today's show, we have Henrik Clausen. He wrote an article that Greg and I were interested in, so we came on the show, and what an honor to speak to him, Greg.
That's right. Personalized lighting and the ability to control and all that goes along with it.
A
lot of good ideas.
All spiritual too, though. On this one, we got all
Oh,
spiritual and deep. So I've actually gotten a few emails from people that like that side of it, that look forward to when they. What did that one girl say? The spirituality switch is going to get flicked. Here we go. There we go.
That's right. Then I bring it back to how you can actually sell it. So I think we did that on this one.
Maybe we did. Maybe we didn't. Who knows? But I really enjoyed speaking to Henrik, and what a good gentleman, and just another example of all the great people in lighting, Greg.
That's right. A great discussion, man.
But before you get to listen to it, got to go to the original. The original. Who's the original? EnergyFocus.com, baby. That's EnergyFocus.com, Greg. EnergyFocus.com.
And we're talking today about their new InFocus platform. And there's no better idea of this in our discussion today, to personalize your lighting. So right now, when you do that, a lot of times, if you want to personalize your lighting, that means to dim it and potentially to change the color. And really, the only way to do both is to change the fixture until now. Energy Focus has the InFocus where they're actually built into an LED tube. Now you keep the fixture. The LED tube itself can be dimmable and or color changeable. 10 different dimming steps, 10 different colors in between, and it's all from a switch. Line voltage on the wall. You don't need to run 0 to 10. You don't need to get wild. You got an existing fluorescent fixture. You got a switch on the wall. You can make it color tunable and dimming just like that, and the price is right. I looked at it. I'm offering it. I'm selling it. You guys should too.
Take a victory lap, James, too, because this one is a good one. That's a good product. It's the original company, the original Energy Focus. Go to EnergyFocus.com, baby. Get excited, because they're members of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, of course. And that's where all the great companies that want to sell great products belong. They belong in Nailed. And if you're listening to this, got to join. Got to get associated. Come on down and hang out. That's right. We're going to be back. There's going to be conventions again. So don't worry. As soon as they say, we're going to be go. So go to NAILD.org to check it out. But for right now, Henrik Clausen on Get a Grip on Lighting. Welcome to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, Henrik Clausen.
Thank you much. Thank you very much for having me.
Say hello to Greg Eric.
Hello, Greg. Good to see you too.
You as well. Thanks for coming on all the way from Denmark. Is that where you're at?
I'm actually in Sweden, but I'm Danish and I'm born in Denmark, but I moved to Sweden 6 years ago working here at the Fagerholt office.
Okay. So you have 30 years of lighting experience. Can you give us a quick rundown on what you've done in 30 years? I know that is hard to sum up, but as best you can.
No, it's not that hard. I left university in Denmark like 32 years ago, got my first job, stayed there for 12 years. And after that, I switched to Fagerholt, where I am now. I've been there for 23 years, so it's pretty quick. During that time, I've been working as an educator on the university and giving a lot of lectures around the world. So it's always been lighting, and my passion is in discomfort glare and in lighting design. And for the last 4 years, I've been a professor at the Aalborg University in Copenhagen alongside to my job. So, well, it's lighting all the time.
Sure. And as a professor, what courses are you teaching?
I'm taking the electrical engineering approach, as I'm an electrical engineer in base. I do evaluation of products and legislation and all the boring stuff with standards. And then we have architects in lighting. We have a daylight specialist there, and we have a controls and a visualization guy as well. So we are 7 teachers, and this year 54 students from 24 countries. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you founded, is it the Fagerholt Lighting Academy? Is that right?
Yes, I did that in 2004. I was the MD of sales for Fagerholt in Denmark for 7 years. And, that's sort of a dark period in my life where I had to yell at salespeople and looking at spreadsheets all the time. So now I'm back to looking at lighting and design and creating a better environment for people, hopefully. So But it was cool. I have both the R&D, the academic, and the sales. So when I knit together or close the bag, it's pretty all around the place.
Okay, and are you guys selling Fagerhult throughout Europe or throughout Sweden and Denmark, or where are you guys selling mostly?
No, we are strong in Europe. We are number 3 in Europe. There are Suntable, say Signify, and then us. So we are the 3 big in Europe, and we're not based in the US, but some of our group members are like LED Linear and VF and other companies. We are 14 companies in the group, so it's a global group with lighting innovations in South Africa, Eagle Lighting in Australia, R-Light in Turkey. So it's growing and becoming a strong group, we think, but mainly based in Europe.
Yeah, so that's one thing that I've always found interesting. We had somebody on recently that I brought this up to, but why is lighting different in Europe? Why aren't you guys in the United States? I know Signify is, but why isn't your company?
We are not there because the route to market is difficult for us. We are over here, we are working with lighting designers, architects, and specifiers, but it seems to be a pretty wholesale-driven and agent-driven market in the US, where many agents has like 40 or 50 different companies that they represent. And we would like to be on our own, and we've tried twice in the US, but it just doesn't work. If you're not connected with the lighting designers or the lighting specifiers in the US, you don't have a chance to get in there.
You can't work outside the channel. You can't work outside the channel in the United States. No,
believe me, we tried twice, and it's not worth it. I worked for Louis Paulsen for 12 years. We are established in the state, they are established in the States, and we have a factory in Miami, and we had at that time, I was responsible for the quality insurance of the factory in Miami. But again, it's primarily on the East Coast, and it's like up to New York, Boston, down to Manhattan, down to Miami. But on the West Coast, it's difficult just to spread across the US. It's a huge market.
Geographically too, it's big. It's just like I'm from Canada, and it's very fragmented simply because of the geography. I mean, Vancouver is so far away from Toronto. It's a continent, right? I liked your recent article in LED Professional magazine, Henrik.
Yeah, I got that much.
Yeah, and I have 2 primary questions. But in the first half of your article, you used the word. By the way, you write very well in English. Like, that's beautiful. I mean, I couldn't imagine. I think that would be tough to write for me in English, and then in another language. Come on, that's really, really well written article. But you use the word dream, need, and must, and you imply
that's probably right.
Yeah, you're implying with those words in the beginning of your article that there is this we are on the threshold of a new world through your dream, and that somehow we are obliged, or we are compelled to change these spaces in order to support productivity, comfort, and well-being. So here's my question is kind of twofold, Henrik. The first part of my question is, are you implying that the current systems are not doing this, or that they are maybe creating a negative outcome? And 2, why must we do this?
That's a good question. I need the pause that you offered me to take. So it's I'm a dreamer. I'm definitely a dreamer. I'm a visionary. I always imagine a better world, a huge Star Trek fan ever since I was born. Like, there's something to strive for a better world. And when we are looking at if I may address question number 2 first, we are looking at a global aging population. It seems that within 2 or 3 generations we'll be massively older. I lost my father when he was 72, my mother when she was 78. Statistically, I'll be 95. My daughter is today 29. She will statistically be 110, and if she gets kids, they'll be 115. Nobody can leave the work market at 60, because we need to work till we are getting older, at least till we are, let's say, 75, if we are turning 90 or 100 years old. But in 30 years, the average age, or the age when people will sign off, may be 110. So it's hard to imagine people start working at 20 and stop at 60. And the standards that were created in the 40s are assumed for workspaces. It's like work lighting, and it's defined: you start working when you're 20, you stop working when you're 60. That just doesn't fit anymore. My daughter leaves university when she's 30, and she'll probably stop working when she's 75. And with the rapid aging of our vision, we simply cannot do work lighting for people and assume we stop at 60. It's an exponential curve. Retina decreases, sensitivity decreases, we get cataract. All that stuff happens when we are approaching 70, 80 years. So when you just look at the visual demand, how much light we need in order to fulfill a visual task, to see the environment, to see our peers, then we need a lot of light. And with a global massive move towards an aging population, we will just need it. And that's my challenge. And I think that's why I think we need it, because that's the demographic, and that won't probably change. Now we have Corona, and that sort of adjusts a little bit on everything. But in general, that's the point I'm getting at, that there are some facts that when we are building houses now, when we are installing lighting systems, we probably build a house that we hope will stand there for 30 years, maybe 50 years. But the people who is going to use that office space, or that shopping mall or whatever, in 30 years, they will have a different demographic. They'll be much, much older. So my challenge to people is, do you want to install the infrastructure for control systems? Do you want to put in higher output fixtures that you can regulate in 10 years? Or do you just want to tear everything down again in 10 to 15 years and then put in new fixtures with higher light output? Or do we need to rethink, start to use much more daylight, and compensate the lack of daylight with electric light when the daylight fades away, so we do much more daylight harvesting? That's actually what I'm getting at in that article, really.
So that leads me to my next question for you, which is surrounds controls and healthy lighting. So, and then
Yes.
you say that one of the keys to the dream is the personalization of light and allowing people to be able to change the way their lighting system kind of operates for them personally. But to
Yes.
me, I think that to me, that just seems like another hassle. To me, that seems like another thing that I got to do now, another alert on my phone, And so I think the idea of controls and IoT is really about a system and programming the light level that most people should have, or what have you. And that if anybody has the small percentage of people that actually care about their lights, maybe have the ability to control. But I think if we're going to accomplish environments where life is supported, or that light supports better health, we need to automate that for everybody. I don't think giving them control over it is what's going to do that.
I actually really like your point. It's very valid, and it's a minority. And now you and I probably don't understand that not everybody in the world are excited about lighting and is thrilled whenever about it. Most people really don't care, and it's and maybe they shouldn't. But what I want to try to do is most on the biological side, that we would like to. Or I have this vision, or at least my dream is that we can build a system that follows you, like a smartwatch, an active watch, your phone, or whatever. So if I have been out walking 20 minutes during my lunch break and it was sunshine, if I let it. So if I go back into the office, I may dim my light a little bit because I already has been exposed to the amount of daylight that I need to get a good night's sleep tomorrow or tonight. So I think that if we monitor our light history over years, weeks, days, we may find out that that dynamic balance that is controlled by light, our body clock that's controlled by light, will get the right amount of light, like a boost in the morning, a boost after lunch, and then we will have an efficient day, especially when you get older. We're working with a lot with dementia patients, and that's where it comes from. And these have these disturbed pattern where they walk up during they run around, sleep during the day, walk during the night, and we want to help people get back into the rhythm that we are programmed for, so we can have that good night's sleep. So it's actually more about the biological aspects and a way of being able to provide that light. Once we know the spectral distribution, which we don't today, we don't know what is good light for people who is going to adjust to a biological rhythm, but we will hopefully be able to have I think your idea is really good, have a really good installation that is automatically controlled so people don't have to worry. But if you want to override it, then you actually don't do it by pushing buttons, but you do it by allowing an app to monitor your whereabouts. You can have this little variable thing that measures how much light you've had. And then once you come back into the space, it can illuminate your desk or your workspace or your home to a level that is predetermined to you. But I must admit, your point is very valid. Probably not many people who will run around doing that.
Yes.
I think I've said it before, and I think the only way to truly ever accomplish this is to have a floating light go with you everywhere. Because if you think about, an office environment, you're in a cubicle, and you have one light fixture that's half over you, half over the person next to you, and so it's really going to take. I like the idea for sure, and I think there would be some real benefit, but I think logistically and putting it all together is going to be the real difficult part about this.
Yes.
Is there any way we can overcome that?
I think there is not a big, but there is a slight difference in the way we light in Europe and we do in the US, because I've never shared a fixture with anybody. I have my own, actually. And if that's tunable white and it's with a reflector system, it's addressable, it's actually, it's pretty good. You probably also know that over here we have the right to daylight. So every office has a window, and we have to be seated next to the window. Actually, in Danish and Swedish legislation, I have to be able to see the blue sky by looking out. So I can't even have an opposite building. So wherever I'm sitting working as of right now, if I turn my head and look out there, I can see a glimpse of the blue sky, and I actually get daylight in, and I have my own fixture up here. So here it would work.
That's a law. You have to be able to see that there.
Yes,
daylight.
That's that's work building registration law, and that is difficult in the big cities. But if you go to the window and you squeeze up, you can actually see up. So that's a law. You're not allowed to work in only electric light.
That's the IKEA law.
Yeah, it could very well be that. Yeah. I actually think it's slightly older, but never mind. But what we are saying is that we've talked a lot about that with light following people. You've probably seen these ones where we are having now outdoor lighting with drones. So when you park your car, the drone comes over your car and made the street lighting, and it just follows you all the way. So you don't need any poles. You can just have 10 drones with an array of LEDs, and they light up a huge parking space. So wherever you park your car, you will have light enough. But that doesn't really give us the feeling of security and safety.
That creeps everybody out.
That you don't. Sorry?
That'll creep everybody out, actually.
Yeah, it definitely will. But it's the light that follows, as you just said earlier. It's the light that follows people, and we've done that forever. Like ever since we got that torch we were running around with. So when we see light, we associate it with a person is moving. Mm-hmm. We don't see it as a threat at an animal, but somebody else, one of our peers, is moving somewhere when the light is following him. So all these intelligent systems that switches off the light when I'm going here, switches on out there, that's actually back to light that follows you. It's a very, very interesting point, but forget the drone stuff. That's creeps.
we're creatures of the light in a way. That's what we are, you know. And so I have a question for you, and I've asked
Yep.
a lot of scientists this question. Okay, and nobody can really give me an answer about it. And I think human beings have part of their evolution is directly connected to fire. Like, I'm not talking about we like to cook with fire or that fire warms us. I'm talking about that humans lived close to controlled fire for so many millions of years, probably whenever they got fire, a million years ago or but
Yeah.
long enough that the process of evolution could have taken place. And so, do humans have a primordial or ancient, as you use in your piece, ancient or primordial attachment to that warm, high IR, low Kelvin temperature light of fire?
I'm I'm absolutely sure, but I cannot give you a published paper or address where you can download it because I'm having the same challenge as you are having. I'm absolutely sure about it because when you are sitting with a friend and a stick around a campfire somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
it's actually one of the few times where you don't look at your phone all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're sitting there with a good friend, a beer and a stick, you can have an entire evening and you feel great
Mm-hmm.
because I think fire gave us safety so we can rest. There are no wild animals attacking us when we are sitting around
Mm-hmm.
it. We know it created room for us to stay awake. It helped us evolve our language. It's the way when we look at each other, when we have
One
the candlelight.
one more point. Most of us would have been conceived beside a fire.
That's right, probably few in the darkness, probably. But yes, let's
Yeah.
say most of all around the fire. You're right about. I haven't thought about that though. But it's something that we reproduce. When I'm teaching my students at the university, I always recommend them to propose in the sunrise or in the sunset. Because when you have the warm colors of the sun, low angles hitting your face, you look nice, you look kind, your skin tone is right, your diamond ring is sparkling, the roses are red,
Mm-hmm.
all the warm light that colors. As soon as you get the sun up there, you're not that attractive shadows under your chin and your nose and eyebrows. But when you have that side light, especially in a candlelight dinner, and I think that's when you are normally proposing, and that's damn close to the fire. Because when we are in that campfire daylight, sorry, campfire, candlelight, kerosene lamps, it's just beautiful.
Well, think about it. There's another way to think about it. So the sun rises, right? And it's got this warm Kelvin temperature. It goes higher and higher. And as it sets, we begin to light a fire, which is a slightly lower Kelvin temperature than it.
Yes,
So we're still
right.
setting with the sun in a way. And
Yes,
the other thing, I think there's something to the infrared. I think that the feeling of the heat, which is the light waves as well, the light and the heat are
yes.
together hitting you. There's something to that as well, for sure.
There's definitely, and you're on dangerous ground with that because when we talk about LEDs don't having any red spectrum, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
penetrate our skin and all that stuff. I'm not good at that, but a lot of people are talking about it that we associate light to warmth, which is not the issue anymore. Now it's cold and it's just lighting the surface. It's not
Mm-hmm.
lighting
Mm-hmm.
our inner core, our body. Like when you are lying out there taking a sun bath, your entire body is being lit up inside as well and radiated with infrared beams. So
I'll
I
give
think
you.
it's
Here's another anecdote. Okay, this is just a total anecdote. Okay, so
cool.
my yesterday it was really no Sunday was really nice in Toronto. So, and I have a farm which has 6 acres of grass that needs to be mowed. My son had like this infection on the front and back of his legs, and we've been treating it with cream for
Mm.
2 or 3 months. Nothing's happening. Okay, then he goes and he wears shorts and he mows the lawn for 4 hours. And he gets a really bad sunburn on his legs. Because I told him to put sunscreen on, but he didn't listen. Okay. So that night, I go up to his room. I'm like, okay, let's put your cream on your legs to see because it's sunburn, but put that antifungal cream on your legs. And I look at the front of his legs and all the fungus is gone off the front,
It's amazing.
but not on the back where his legs
Okay.
weren't in the sun. So literally one day, we were at it for 2 or 3 months, one day of having his skin in light, in natural sunlight. Yes, he got a sunburn. He could have put on some sunscreen or whatever. But one day of having his skin in natural light took away the infection on the front of his legs. That blew me away, actually. And that's like the sun's rays, the heat, the light from the sun is giving us something. We're doing some kind of human photosynthesis with our hormones as the light enters our eyes and this sort of stuff. There's something so important about natural light and then moonlight as well that is deeply primordial and ancient. And we need to discover what that is.
There might be a reason that Ra was the sun god and the boss of the other gods in Egypt. And when we go through history, we see these light therapy when you build something above 2,000 meters in the mountain, monasteries, healing centers. It's just like when you said water and light would do the most for us humans, but we are away from clean water and decent daylight.
There's something about lake water. I'll tell you this. There is, man. Like, I don't like swimming in the ocean. No, but I mean, but there's something about it that is, this is why Canadians, and I'm sure Nordic people, they go live in the forest in the summer and they swim in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And why do we do this? This is all northern peoples do this. They go to some place in nature, swim in the water, and they probably have a sauna. And so they're receiving all this natural light in the summer. It's almost like a human farm growth of our good hormones, and then we harvest them in the winter or something. I'm not kidding you. It's really strange.
No, I buy it because I live up here. Today the sun rose at 4:20, and it will set at 21:20. And in the winter it goes down at 3 in the afternoon and gets up 9 in the morning. So we are yearning for daylight. We're waiting for it, just barely surviving. And suicide rates up here in the northern parts are hopeless because we are out of balance. Because we are calibrated for evolution in Central Africa, where we have 12 hours daylight, 12 hours darkness every day, all year round for millions of years. And when we are moving, the further up we move north, the more we are twisted in that, and we need somehow to get back to nature.
So it has to be. So I have to ask this question then, Henrik. Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to ask.
You're welcome.
That has to be why you have white skin and blue eyes. That has to be the reason why. I mean, I read an article in The Economist a couple of weeks ago that scientists are arguing about that no, northern hemispheres are not, that's not why your skin is white. It's some other reason. It has to be something to do with light absorption. It has to have something to do with it.
You probably know that if we've talked 10 years ago and people said, are there any different in light and perception in eyes that are blue or brown? We said, no, they're the same. It's just the color. It's not more than like 4 or 5 years ago that we found out that blue eyes let 2% more light in than brown eyes. And that makes a lot of sense because when you were in Central Africa where there was vast amount of light, you don't need it. But when you're up here, evolution tells you we need to harvest every photon that comes our way to feel good. I totally agree, but it's
and that explains right away why people like, I'm from Toronto. You're in the Nordic countries. I think you said you're in Sweden right now.
Yes, I'm in Sweden.
Yeah, I mean, when people come from a southern country and they move to Toronto or they move even to Stockholm, that is a massive, massive difference for them.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't go both ways. It's probably better for us to go down there, but for them to come here is devastating in a way.
It's very, very hard. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I always get these questions when we do research and we quote some scientists and people say, yeah, but that research was done in Seattle in the States or it was done in Milan. Can we compare? Probably not. We can only say it worked there. But honestly, what we do of research in the Nordic countries, it'll probably work in the Nordic country because that's where the research is done. But we cannot superimpose it to Rome and say, if you do like that in Rome, you'll be happy or you'll be energized because it's so difficult. And one thing that I've been fascinated with for many years is that we seem to take our light culture with us. When we get people from Syria or Egypt up here living, they bring cool fluorescent lamps, no shielding. They put them in the ceiling. Every suite has a pendant, warm color temperature suspended over there. So when you drive around Stockholm or Gothenburg, you look out, you can see, oh, there's a foreigner coming in living here. That's a local. You can just see it by the light coming out of the buildings. I bet you have the same in your country. And when you should move,
One of my
you would
electricians put a 4-lamp T5 high output fixture in his living room. I'm not kidding you.
Is he a Canadian?
No, he's from Pakistan. But
that sounds more like it.
Yeah. And he said to me, he goes, we were doing this factory. He's like, oh, can I have one of those? And I'm like, what do you want it for? He's like, I want it for my home.
Yeah. But it's not, the funny thing, it's not that it's right or wrong. It's
no,
just
I'm
different.
not saying anything. Yes.
No. And it's because I had a friend who worked for Ericsson phone company building telephone centrals in New Delhi. And he brought his pendant. He even had to have a vario transformator with him down there so that he could adjust the line voltage to run that pendant, because he couldn't imagine having dinner with his family over the dinner table without a suspended pendant. And everywhere else in Delhi, you have a fluorescent tube, 5,000 Kelvin in the ceiling in a basic fixture. So it's really something about you take your light with you. It's like, and I have to tell you a story. Many years ago, I was in Miami and I was giving a lecture on the Scandinavian painters, and the Golden Age painters in Scandinavia, they moved from Copenhagen to Jutland. It's a small area, 300 kilometers, because the light was different. And I gave a lecture on these. I have a few paintings with me and I talked about that. And I was giving that presentation in Miami. And a very good customer was invited to come to Scandinavian. And he came over 2 years later. And when we were having our dinner in Copenhagen, he came up to me and said, all the stuff you talked about, Danish light and warm color temperatures and all that, I didn't believe a word of it when you were in Miami, because I know how light is. I've seen it every day in my life. And now I'm experiencing it. You simply, even though you know you work with lighting, it's so hard to imagine light difficult. Even if you try to say, okay, I can imagine the sun rises fast, it lowers fast, but you can't really feel it.
No.
And once you are there, it's not like home. So I believe we are very, very attached to where we are born, where our ancestors were, maybe our parents, grandparents. It's somehow very close. And when we suddenly go to Central Africa or Abu Dhabi or Dubai or something, and the sun just sets like that, it's pitch black. Woo, what happened here, And even though you're intelligent people, we know it will happen, we are still being surprised. It's so deeply rooted in us. But that was my story. Not as good as the one with yours.
No, that's a good. No. Totally. No. Greggy.
No, yeah, you guys. So you wrote in your article that we know light affects human biology, human health, everything, but more detailed studies are required to help us understand their performance. You might have answered it in that it's going to depend on the area, but why aren't more studies being done? Is it just truly the cost? And if it is, don't people understand the importance that this can have on everyone? And why not invest in it?
It's actually, it's not to be rude, but it's actually one of the best questions today, because we are always asking for more money. And I'm sitting at the university and say, could we get some more money? And I'm also sitting at the company and say, you don't get any more. So Tridonic, Zumtobel, Iguzzini, and Fagerhult went together because it's starting to become extremely expensive to do research. So the funding is a big issue. And when you're funding research, you would like to have some proof that fits your next move to market or your new products or whatever. But in this case, we were doing a study called double dynamic lighting, where we talked about how can we use tunable white and intelligent iOS system that are combining the inflow of daylight so that we actually can start doing that. And there are so many aspects, to try to answer your questions, that just are not being funded, because either the universities, they get their money when they are being quoted. So if I quote the paper that you wrote on the Toronto University, then you get some money. And if you write a paper that's not interesting a lot, you get less money, you don't get it from me. So it's also going out there selling the idea to the universities that you should do some research on that, and say, yeah, why should we do that? Who cares? I care. Well, that's one. Well, where's the rest? Now there's two there, so we are three now. But it's very, very difficult to get the funding. And
you got to pitch it in a different way. You got to pitch it to them in a different way. So I was talking to another guy on my podcast yesterday, and he said one of the problems with modern education is that it's boring. It's boring. And he said they should have a course in every high school called Is There Life in Outer Space? That should be a course. And then the scientific reasons, maybe yes, no, or whatever, about why there's life in outer space. Another course should be called, like in grade 9, The Earth is Round and Revolves Around the Sun. Right? Like that should be a course. So people don't end up becoming...
skip the flat earthers.
Yeah, like we could just get rid of stuff by telling people these people. Anyway, here's how you got to pitch it to these people with money. You got to say, okay, we need to know how light works, how it affects the human species. We need to know how our bodies produce vitamin D in our eyes more than our skin, and why, all these answers, why infrared makes us feel amorous and makes us feel friendly and warm and want to be close to one another. We need to know the answer to all these questions, because that will be the scientific proof for the existence of God. If we can answer those questions,
I hadn't seen coming.
I
must admit, I didn't. I didn't see the last twist coming. So.
That's what it is. I mean, if you can answer those questions and know why the Earth, why the sunlight creates life on Earth, that's what you're asking. How do we create life from light using water?
Yeah, that's actually what we're getting at. I'm with you on that one.
That's the dream. And if you can dream that dream, if that can become a reality, that's the proof for God. So if anyone wants to know if God exists or not, this is his equation. Light plus water equals life under these conditions. That's God. And creates consciousness. Creates consciousness.
It's a bit far for me on a
seriously,
day like this.
That's what it is. Like if somebody says, what is consciousness? It's light plus water, a certain distance from the sun, equals consciousness. And we can now think about that. Like that's all light.
Pretty cool.
So that's how you get your funding. Tell them that you're going to prove. Go to the churches. Go ask the churches for the money.
Okay, yeah, they got the money. That's for sure. But they'll probably keep it now. But we are very humble, because we try to tell people that we need to find out the spectral distribution, and if we want to replicate daylight, it has a big cost. And when we had color rendering 80 from fluorescent tubes, blah blah blah, then we had a line spectrum and all that. And of course, we can replicate daylight if we want to do it with LEDs, but at a very, very high cost. The LEDs are expensive. The energy consumption is high. So I think what we are trying to find out now is what kind of wavelength are we actually using to address different receptors to influence these things. So with a little luck, in 5 years, we may have a light source that actually does some of the things, if not all, at a reasonable energy consumption. But what I keep telling people, and what I tell our customers in Scandinavia, what I tell my students is, nothing beats daylight. It's so important that electric light people like myself remembers that's the master out there. We can just fill in humbly when it fades away. That's what we do. We can prolong the day a little bit, but we cannot replicate it. And I get so sad when people are telling us, we have a daylight light source. We can replicate it. You won't notice it. Oh, yeah. Sure you will, on many levels.
So there's so much snake oil in the lighting business when you get down to here's why I like you, and here's why you're the right man for the job. Okay, you're not a specialist. you don't have a career in academia. You know, you've
No.
been in academia, you've been in the business world, you've been in the research world, and you're teaching and you're learning, and like you have a wide sort of approach to it, so you can dream. But here's the question that I don't think we can answer. The two most
I'll
important.
answer it for you.
Okay, try it.
Maybe
The two
not.
most important endeavors that the human species is on right now, okay, is discovering how light works and what it is and how it affects us, and creating clean energy. Or they might be the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I cannot answer it, of course, and I should be a little bit more humble. But
Go on.
you are getting you're really hitting the point, because it is it would be hard to get to that. I think we are interlinked with light in a way that it's very hard to understand, and we need to go outside the normal scientific. As you've been scratching the edges here today in our talk, we're somewhere outside, and we need to be a little bit more holistic. And what I have discovered over the last, let's say, 8 to 10 years is that we have this multi-discipline approach, which is so beautiful. When I left university as an electrical engineer, one of the curriculums was hate architects. I just had to do that. That was part of it. Tick that box. Yeah, I hate architects, and they hate me. So when I started taking extra lessons at the School of Architecture, people say, "Who are you?" Well, I just graduated as an electrical engineer, but I don't understand what you're asking for. So I cannot make the fixture. I cannot make the lighting installations because I don't know what you were asking for. So I needed to go there and learn their language to get it on. And it has helped me so much. Just like it helps me talking to you guys and getting new fresh perspectives, new points where I say, could that be like that? And that's why I think we should all, hopefully all in the lighting industry, do some things, let's test possibilities, let's see if it works. Because it's not, in the theory, it's too difficult, I think. We need to be a bit more experimental.
Henrik Clausen.
Yes.
Thank you for being a guest on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much for having you. Nice to meet you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.
ENERGYFOCUS.com, Greg. That's energyfocus.com. Coming out hot.
With their in-focus lighting platform. We talked about it at the beginning, but I'm telling you, this thing is a real deal.
Nasty.
It's a tube. It's a type B tube. A type B tube, like something you sell all day long. For a little bit more money, now you can make it color changeable and dimmable. And line voltage. There's no additional wiring to do other than to bypass the ballast, put the tubes in, and the switch talks to the tubes, talks to the fixtures, and it makes it color tuning and dimming. Personalized lighting control, what we talked about in the podcast today, can be done for not anywhere near as much as it used to have to be paid to get done.
So original. You got to go to energyfocus.com. Jimmy 2 with the home run. That's right, James 2. Energyfocus.com. ENERGYFOCUS.com, baby. And of course, members of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. That's right. Nailed. Come on, get associated. Coming out with educational products. Yeah, baby. That's right. I'm going to do it. We're going to do it, Greg. Nailed's going to come out with a really hot educational product in the summer. So check it out at nailed.org. And of course, Henrik Clausen, we're going to get that beer, buddy. We're going to get that beer you talked about in the show. There's nobody that likes beer more than these two guys right here. So we're going to get over there to Europe. We're going to get some nice Danish lager. Ooh, yeah. I can't even wait to get there, buddy. So Henrik, we'll shake hands soon. Thanks for listening, folks.
Written on the rectory wall, there's a sign there for all. You are lost, Lord is there to find you.